All right, everybody. This is a real fun one that we have for you here today. Of course, we all just watched the classic throwback, one of the greatest Survivor episodes of all time on everybody's list, The Martyr Approach, season 18, episode 13. And of course, to talk about it, this is such a great lineup here. That first off, we have the man who this was really his big moment in Survivor Tocantins, who's going to be back for Survivor 50. Of course, it is the Dragon Slayer. Coach is here. Coach, how are you?
Fantastic. How about you guys?
Could not be more excited for this. And what a delight to have a man who was back on primetime television here for the first time in over a decade. It's Stephen Fishbach.
I'm back. This is my
This
return.
was your come. You thought
Yeah.
season 50 was the big comeback.
Yeah. Little did I
No,
know. Yeah.
Steven is back on TV,
Oh my
everybody.
gosh. Yeah, that's what people are celebrating. What do you
Yes.
think, Coach? It's where it all began.
My gosh, it's another lifetime, isn't it? Truly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I could ask you guys questions, but I feel like for you two to have this episode, this like slice of your life back in everybody's minds here tonight, what was it like for you two?
Well, how is your back? I should ask you that first.
Stephen, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be having problems with various parts of my body. But the back is in a place. You know what? Can I tell you something? My back is doing good.
Modern medicine. Hey, this was like 15 years ago.
But guess what? 2 days before I left for season 50, I friggin' threw it out again.
No.
I'm serious. I threw it out again. My stupid trainer was like, "Hey, do these dumbbells," and he was making me do burpees and then doing like a thrust squat and so like stupid stuff. And so I did them, and then I'm like, "Let me go higher weight." And 2 days before, man, I threw it out, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" I texted Matt Van Wagenen and I said, "Dude, I do. You got to get me somebody down there on site. I'm going to see the chiropractor before I leave, but you got to get me somebody on site." And he reamed me in the plane. He was like, "Coach, you freaking old man. What are you doing, man? It's not starting out 100%." I said, "Just get me somebody there." So when everybody else was chilling on lockdown in Ponderosa, they said, "Coach, come with us." And I went to this, private room, and this lady was incredible. She moved and like pushed, and like it wasn't quite chiropractor. It wasn't like Reiki healing. It was something different. And I
Wow.
popped off of that bed, not bed, but of whatever the yoga table is. And I felt like a new man. And so it's still giving me problems, but fortunately it did not affect the first episode, let's say in season 50. Okay. So thank you for asking the only person to kneel down and see if I was okay
Well, that's
in
what I
that
want.
moment after that challenge. So thank you,
Well,
Wizard, for being the
fine.
wizard.
Listen, I mean, you were always someone who gave so much warmth and kindness to everybody. I remember when I came back from Exile my second time and I was shivering and, a bedraggled little, drowned rat. And you kind of first person to come over, give me a big hug, just like warm me up with your body heat. You always extended that empathy and, human like kindness to people when they were suffering. And so it was, hard to see you then suffering. And I knew how difficult the Exile experience was. So I'm curious about for you watching this back, there's almost this question in this episode, right? You've got like on the one hand, me and JT, and we're like, we love Coach, like he's a great guy. And then you sort of have Taj and he's like, he's full of BS. Like, what is it like for you to watch that back now? Like, what emotions does that bring up? Because I remember at the time, it was sometimes hard to be like, to always be the villain of the season in many ways. And then, of course, to go on to greatness on Heroes versus Villains.
I think, for me, that kindness that you talk about, that's something that's really, it's never really shown that much, on my Survivor journey. There's other parts that they want to show. But I think, it was there at the time Exile happened. It was such a momentous part, and watching it back, I'll never forget the first time I watched it back. They actually flew me to New York City for the round of interviews,
Yeah.
exit interviews, and at the same time, we had the finale coming up. So I was in New York City for like 5 days. But I got off the plane, it was like 11 o'clock, and they did not, have streaming back then. So they handed me a disc. They said, "Watch this because you're doing your interview." So I watched on a laptop in my hotel room, and I just watch myself. And, like I was emotional watching it because you watch somebody that is really, pushing past what their physical body might be capable of doing, and in a way, maybe thriving in that moment. But I mean, let's make no bones about it. I didn't want to go to exile. I was scared to death to go to exile. And in my mind, as I started, formulating a plan, at that moment, of course, I was thinking I'm on this mythological, journey of nicknaming people. And I was just like outside the box, outside the game, outside of my mind in a way, but still having a great time with it. And so, being ready to go to exile, I'm like, all right, let me put myself in a spot of win-win. I'm always thinking about that in life. How can I put myself in a position where I'm I'm going to win? It's why I don't play basketball in real life. I'm freaking hate basketball. I'm coaching my 9-year-old's team, and sometimes I'll be like, hey, watch this, guys, and I'll have that shot, and I've studied the technique. I get this shot at freaking the brick, But he's only 9, so it's okay for now. But I don't put myself in things that I want to win, and so that I don't win. And so going to exile, I'm like, how can I win? I can win by not having to build a fire. I can win by not eating. I can win by just making it cinematographically, not even a real word, just as epic as possible.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how I formulated this plan to go out there and to do that. And man, listen, for whatever you want to say, I was in an exalted spiritual state of enlightenment because we're all starving. Our bodies are eating themselves brutally during that season. We're all deprived of sleep. We've got bugs and everything else that we're dealing with 24/7. And so I was in a spot where I cannot really get to in my everyday life because I was meditating for an hour a day. I was doing Kochi, for an hour a day. I was singing songs to God, walking down the path. I was in this spot where it was pretty cool. And so, it was something that I just really did my own way. And I'm forever grateful for everybody on the Survivor production team to honor me in those moments. Exile was like probably my favorite part of the whole journey.
I mean, that image of you, that's one of the defining images of the show now. Like that's one of the most iconic Survivor images of all time. You on exile, kind of like opening yourself to the experience.
Right.
But I don't think there's any, I'm hard pressed to come up with another singular episode of the show that is just such a, just devoted to one character where it's really all about you. And I feel like that even though at the end of the episode you get voted out, I really feel like this episode really just cements you in Survivor lore as just this like larger than life figure. It's really incredible.
I think, just to be a part of that and to see it. And I think, looking back on it, I do think that the producers knew that they were going to have some fun at my expense. I think that they knew that I was going to be polarizing. I don't think that they knew the hatred that was going to come from the season. And I'm so glad I got voted off that episode. It was just amazing to have that be the bookend, because anything after that would have been anticlimactic. They vote Aaron out that night, and then the next tribal council. Obviously, my days were numbered. I didn't know it at the time. And so then that would have been anticlimactic. But it's really interesting because after I got voted out, I, was sitting there in the truck. I've told this story a couple of times. I was sitting in the truck, and all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh shit, take off your blindfold. Jeff is coming over." And I was like, what? And they're like, "Yeah, oh gosh, he never does this. Coach, take off the blindfold." And then the door opens, and Jeff shakes my hand. He was like, "Man, you were incredible this season. I just had to shake your hand and to say, great job." And I said, "What? Like I failed you. I wanted to get the strongest to the end." I was still in that mentality. And he was like, "No, coach, like, do you know what you've done?" I said, "I failed you." He says, "No, like you've created this larger than life and it's going to be an amazing ride." He just was really complimentary of me in that moment. And I'll never forget that because, in a moment where I felt like I had failed, he made some comment about, "Man, you're going to get more airtime than anybody's gotten, especially in this episode." So he was really generous. And that kind of made me think, wait a second, let me step back and realize maybe that there's a different journey here that's going on, one that's different than I was trying to narrate.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that tribal council. You may not have picked up on this because you didn't know you were going home at that point, but like before Jeff read the votes, he kind of like looked at you and like you could see he was, you know, you could see he was like, this is the farewell. You could see he was sort of like emotional about having to like say goodbye to, you know, a character and a player that he really enjoyed. And in terms of like the villainy, I mean, I've always said that I don't think they knew how to even like edit you until maybe this episode. And you know, I feel like you were more of sort of like pushed into this villain archetype in the early episodes of Tocantins in a way that was not true to who you are. And I kind of felt like this episode was where the producers and the editors sort of like really like keyed in on like, here's how we show Coach. And you know, you weren't on Here's What's Villains for as long, but I feel like they kind of like captured you a lot there better than here almost.
And, you know, just my hats off to you, Stephen and JT, because during the whole season, I don't know if you remember this, and then I want to get back to that final tribal council, but during the season, you guys were so cool, man. Like, I remember talking to you and you called me after the Amazon story. I don't know if you remember this, but, you know, like you were just really generous in, you know, like your acceptance of me and just generous in, you know, hey, we know you're having the time with the edit, you know, Aaron's calling you a jackass over and over. But it was cool because you guys were really there for me in a way that somebody like Tyson and Debbie could not be, because they really, you know, were not, they were on my side. I'm not really saying this correctly, but they were on my side. So for them to say, oh, Coach, you know, you were awesome. That was one thing. Right. But for you and JT, you know, to just continually be there to support me and love me, you know, I just want to say thank you for that. Back to that last tribal council. You know, I've always, you know, really had this in my mind, that little sixth sense that's like, you know, danger is coming, or you need to do this, or whatever it is. And so in that moment, you know, I'm sitting there and I was just, you know, so naive and such a bad Survivor player that first go around. But I just had that little thing say, you better read the poem, because I'd come up with this poem. I had not shared it with anybody. And it was just like, I don't think I shared it with anybody, if memory serves correctly. But it's like, I just had this thing in my mind that was like, you better read that poem. I mean, I thought the three of us were going to the end, right? And so I was like, you better read that poem. And then I did. And what a great, you know, little, you know, coup de grace, a little cherry on top just for the very end. Accoutrement, that's the word I'm looking for, just to be like, hey, by the way, I'm also going to spit this poet out for you. And the funny thing is, when people quote that today, it really makes me chuckle, because it was something that, you know, I almost didn't even say.
The poem, you wrote it on the island?
Yeah, you know, the friend and foe, we marched to the battle.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I know the poem. Yeah. But
I didn't write it, but I like wrote it in my mind.
Yes.
And you know, I was like, it was just there and it was rolling around. Of course, the moment of critical execution, when you got to either say it or fall all over yourself, it came out very lucid. It came out exactly how I had said it in my mind. See, I can't memorize things really well. So when I memorize the quotes, I'm writing them down like 20, 30 times on the plane, going over, trying to get those stuck in my head, because I can't just read something and memorize it.
Sure.
And so when I do something myself, you know, especially something specific like that, it's got to be, I usually would write it down. So yeah, I came up with that day. You know, I was just like, wow, this is such a great game, and I'm on this vision quest. You know, let me just come up with a poem that rhymes, and it just kind of came to me.
I mean, to remember the Marcus Aurelius quote on day 34, that's hard. Like, you know, to allegedly be someone who can't remember something and to be able to pull out.
Well, no, that's because I wrote down that Marcus Aurelius quote. I got all my notes.
But you didn't have it in front of you, you know.
All my survivors. I went, once I write it down.
Yeah.
30 times, then I finally get it. And it was like, you know, for me to sit there and say, the greatest measure of a man, the greatest measure of a man, I would still kind of botch some of the words and some of the quotes. People make fun of me for that online. I always chuckle. I'm like, what the frick do you expect, man? We're starving.
Exactly. Haven't eaten,
you know, but it's like the greatest measure of a man.
Yeah.
The greatest measure of a man is not. I mean, I got to write it down obsessively. So that Marcus Aurelius quote, you know, I felt like that would be a great one for the show to spring at the right time. And same as season 50, you know, like I wrote down some really good ones. So anyway.
Yeah.
I have a funny quote for you guys today that I came across the other day, and it really made me chuckle. And I might spring it, like at the live reunion or something. But Oscar Wilde once said, I'm so clever that sometimes I can't stand a word that comes out of my mouth. And so that's a good one because in my mind, I think I'm clever, but maybe to everybody else, they might not think so. But sometimes I don't even want to understand what I'm talking about. Apropos, just like right now, I just am blathering on.
Well, Coach, I want to go back to, I mean, can we get into like the weeds of the episode, or is that sort of why we're, I'm curious, like at the start of the episode, we
Uh,
tell you Debbie was coming for you
mhm.
and you believe us. How did you feel when you found out? So basically, like our strategy had been, we would always get like someone to convince someone to vote for their friend, and then you're like, oh, look, they voted for you. Like, you can't be mad at us. We're the ones who saved you. But like, obviously, and of course, like you talked to Debbie at Ponderosa, I assume, and like, cleared that up. But how did you feel in that moment? Because Debbie and you had been together from the jump.
Yeah. You know, I first of all, but you guys were telling, some truth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she did talk about my name. She did throw it out there.
Yeah.
And like so everything kind of rang true for me.
Right.
And then talking to Debbie, and maybe it wasn't, and then she swore up and down that she didn't. I mean, I was in a crazy place, man. I was in a place where it was not about the game anymore. And
Yeah.
and really all I could do, right? I mean, as soon as Tyson got voted out, right? He's like both a blessing and a curse to me. As soon as he got voted out in Heroes and Villains, and then everything just downward spiral, right? The same thing is on Tocantins. You guys voted him out. I'm just like an ox led to the slaughter. Okay, just tell me what you want to hear. I mean, as soon as you guys start saying Warrior Alliance and this and that, you had me hooked. But actually, Stephen, it was the genuine bond that I felt that we had. And it was also the empathy, like you alluded to yourself earlier, that really bonded us. And I watched you guys. I saw you guys, you came to me, in that challenge. It was there. The real connection was there. And so what you fed me, I was gonna believe. So at the start of the episode, I'm just like hanging on for dear life. I'm hanging on for dear life physically. I'm hanging on for dear life with alliances. I mean, the way that you guys played that season was really epic. I'm sure there's a lot of talk. I don't get on Reddit. I don't look up stuff, but I mean, there's got to be talk just about how incredibly brilliant you guys, and really, like coming from you, right? I know that you were the mastermind, but it was just like how brilliant you guys could just run that season. When you look at, season 23, that's not going to happen. I'm going to keep a stronghold on that alliance. And that just evaporated. So I was feeling, like I wasn't on solid ground, but there was this other journey and this other story that was being told. And I was so caught up into that's the only thing I could see with my blinders on it. And in reality, that was the only thing that was important to me. I knew getting to the end, I knew people were, you know, I could see it by the eye rolls and, making jokes, at tribal council. I knew that I wasn't going to get the votes if I made it to the end. So I was just at that point on another journey.
Stephen, can I ask you a question in terms of the episode? Because watching it back, it feels like, okay, you and JT seem earnestly like, hey, we love Coach. We want to keep Coach around. You seemed offended when Erin said that she didn't believe him. And then JT says, I'm not going to vote out Coach. You seem like you're the swing vote in the episode. Why did you ultimately make the vote that you made?
JT was always going to vote out Coach PS. Like he just didn't want to write your name down. Whether that
Mhm.
was a moral thing or a strategic choice,
And I say also in terms of
yeah.
like what Coach is saying, in terms of like if Coach couldn't win at the end, why not go further with Coach?
So first of all, Coach is like, I want to go to the end with you guys. He did. I believe that, but the real end was not with me. I don't think I was your ideal final two partner.
Because
The
it's
other
a
thing
final
is,
two, and you think
I
him
don't
and
think I could have beat
JT.
you. I count those jury votes. I don't think I beat you in that jury, Coach. Like I think you get Tyson's vote, Debbie's vote for sure. I actually think you'll get Sierra's vote. And I mean, maybe Brendan's vote. I don't know. I think you realistically could win that. And I also think, so that was my feeling, was like, I probably lose to Coach. And my other feeling was, I know that you don't want to go to the final two with me. And I thought, like, if, I just didn't want something to go wrong in the final four, final three.
Right. And it's not a final three in this season. Ultimately, it's a but do you know it's going to be a final two?
At this point, we did, but I don't know why. Maybe it was something about the idle timing. We did know it was going to be a final two, but I'm just not sure why we knew that. Do you remember that?
I was clueless to the game. I wasn't counting idols. I literally was just like, I thought it was going to be a final three. I really did think, and you can see now on my other games that I've played that when I give a promise like that, I was going with you guys, and Sierra started laying everything out episodes earlier, and I saw the truth in it, and I did entertain it, right? I did entertain it for a little bit and talked to Debbie about it. And then as soon as you guys confronted me, I was just like, yeah, that's out the window. And I don't want to do that. So, but I did know, like watching back on it, I'm just like, man, Stephen, like that was a great season for him. He definitely deserved some votes at Final Tribal, and maybe things could have gone different. JT had us all snowed, like really, but just
he played
we
great.
all,
he deserved to win.
No, I mean, yeah, no, I agree with that. But dude, you should have gotten some votes. You were like the strategic guy for sure.
Well, let's conference call Aaron in here. But honestly, like I do think the bond between you and JT was what enabled us to thrive, and was one of the defining things of the season. And you guys connected pre-game, right? I feel like you and he had this thing even from pre-game where you were like, not that you spoke at all, but just like the eye contact or whatever.
Yeah. I was telling him with my eyes to be in an alliance with me.
But it worked. I mean, yeah.
But I will say this, that I loved our bond as well. Like to go out there, right? Because there's like this adventurous side of me, but then there's this very academic side that most people don't know about. And so to have you out there reciting poems and, dude, that was like really, really cool. I remember when you went to Exile. I know this episode is not about that, but like when you went to Exile, man, I was praying for you. I was like, and I said, be the wizard, but it was really just like, man, I was with you there, in those struggles. And so I thought that our bond was also, it wasn't as strong as JT's, but it was, definitely a strong bond for me.
Yeah. And I do think that you're right that like that side of you never really got captured by by the edit in that season, which we would talk about like books a lot. You were really into Shantaram at that time, I remember, which I still haven't read. I will but we'd I don't know, it was just cool to, and I think you added a lot of fun to it, by the theming, the D&D theming, kind of like the warrior and the wizard and the dragon slayer. It just made it fun even as a player to like get to be the wizard. I got to be the wizard at home when I played Dungeons and Dragons, but to get to be the wizard there. Where did the dragon stick come from? Can you remind me? Because that really was very, very shapely
I still have it. Yeah, I still have it, by the way. So
you took it on the plane from Tocantins?
Oh, this was a great story. So so let's talk about that. But also, just Survivor is really boring. People don't realize this, but Survivor, that bell means we got about 5 minutes, by the way, but Survivor is boring. So when you can have some wizard come up with literary magic and recite poems from scratch, which of course for me, that's like, man, I can recite one quote, but as far as a whole poem and, so like that was really cool. And then my mythology was also really cool. And so I go on Exile and, I think, Rob, you and I have done a little deeper dive into this, and I'm running off chasing big cats, and, I'm literally spending the night, and the big cats are circling me. I think I told you that story. Like I pee around me one night because that Sixth Sense is like, shit's going to hit the fan tonight. Pee around myself, take ashes from the old fire, and I'm laying there in an absolute, just downpour, a deluge. And I'm hear the walkie come off from the producer that's in the tent. And the guy's like, hey, the big cats are coming towards you. And he's like, okay, what do I do? And they're like, just stay put. And I'm out there. And he's like, they're coming closer. And the guy's freaking out in the tent. He's like, well, what am I supposed to do? He's just like, I don't know. We're going to try to send somebody up there. And I mean, I was so delirious from lack of sleep. I literally was just like, fuck it. Excuse my language. Bleep that out. And then I fall asleep. Okay. The next morning, man, the cats friends literally are all around me. They're like around my head. They circle that where I, urinated on the ground to mark my territory. So anyway, there was some really cool stuff at Exile. But I'm taking a walk that next day, and there had been a lightning storm there a week earlier, and it had and then like way earlier, there had been a fire there, right? And it was caused by lightning. And so like a lot of cool things there. But anyway, there's a tree that was down. And I'm looking at this one branch and I'm thinking, oh, this is freaking cool. And so I started hitting it with a machete. It's so tough, right? It's like it's been hardened. It's basically been heat treated by this lightning strike. And so I strip off all the bark and it's got this really cool thing, you know, like looking head and a little thing that looks like an ear sticking out from it. So I was actually going to carve a face and I started carving it. You see me carving it. I was going to carve like a mouth, but it was so freaking hard that I only got so far. And so, you know, hobbling back to camp, you know, doing the challenge, going back to camp, using that staff, leaning on it in tribal council. And it just really became just like, you know, part of that final journey. And so when we get done, you know, this is a nationally protected land. You can't take anything out of it. And I just hammed it up as far as my back. And it was like, oh man, I really need this to get on the plane. And I'm so sorry. And they were like, well, you can't get that on the plane. Can we wrap that up? And I said, well, wrap it up in tape, but I still needed to walk on, or you guys are going to have to put me in a wheelchair. I did hand that up. And then they were just like, okay, you can take it. And even Matt was like, one of the producers was like, I can't believe you got that out of here. So I still have it. I took it to the jeweler that I had, and he was using these diamond drill bits to mount a plate to it. I'll post a picture later on, on my story. And he broke off like half a dozen drill bits just trying to get this plate. He was like, I have no idea what kind of wood this is, but it's so hard. I can't, my drills won't even drill into it. But that's how I got the staff off of Exile, off the island, so to speak. And here, I actually almost brought it with me to season 50, and you know, like used it as a cane, but then I thought, well, it'd be too much of a spectacle and maybe they would confiscate it on the plane. Who knows? So, but I do still have it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so cool. Like I really watching this episode back and looking at it, it's like, oh, yeah, you know, it really does look like a dragon's head.
Pretty classic, man. It was just one of those things, right? Just the gift from the creator of the universe to bestow on me at the right moment at the right time.
Yeah. Coach, I know you said that I know you're at the school and the kids are going to start coming through in only a couple of moments. Is there anything else about this episode that really jumped out to you that you'd love to let people know about?
I think that it's a great reminder. You know, people live with the glass half full or the glass half empty, right? I mean, that's just, you could have people living the identical life. And one person would say, I wish I would have gone on more vacations. I wish I would have had more children. I wish my wife would have been whatever. And then there's that person with a glass half full that's like, man, I had a great life. I went on all the vacations. I had a great wife. I had a great family. So I've always been that optimist. And so for me, you know, watching myself in the valley to embrace, you know, the crap and to take joy in that, I think is a great lesson for life, to just remember that, you know, we're all in different places, but if we can embrace the now, whether it's the highs or the lows, there's great opportunities that are found when we're in the valleys, right? We never grow on the mountaintops, but our character is forged in the valleys. You know, our perseverance is tested, our patience grows, our character is defined. There's doors that are open during those opportunities. You know, it's just like a great way to just look at myself and say, look, everybody can make fun of me. They can say whatever they want to say, but by golly, I practice what I preach. And that authenticity, I think, without having been on TV for 14 years is why, you know, people, I think, are excited to see the Dragon Slayer back on 50.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think in our own lives, we all sometimes have to go to Exile Island in one way or another, and you can go there and suffer and be miserable, or you can go and turn it into something that legends are made of. And that's exactly what this episode of television proves. So fun to get the chance to talk about it with both of you.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, truly one of the best things I got from the whole Survivor experience was meeting you, you know, when I remember even being there and meeting you and thinking like this is awesome. Like no matter what happens, like I've met like this person who is unlike anyone I will ever meet in my life, and I'm grateful we can still be in touch now.
And so, okay, Coach,
Awesome.
you could watch him coming up February 25th on Survivor 50. And of course, incredible author Stephen Fishbach is here with us, author of the incredibly well-selling book Escape! Which you can find out more about how to purchase at stephenfishbach.com.
True.
Rave reviews from Coach also, by the way.
Oh, great. Thank you, Coach. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes.
You
All
wait
right.
till you wait till our conversation, and when I post it online. Okay, I gotta go, guys.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks,
Bye.
Coach.
Thanks for checking out today's podcast, talking about these classic episodes of Survivor. If you love hearing stories like this from the classic survivors about all of the greatest moments in Survivor history, you're going to love this book. The Tribe and I Have Spoken. We captured 25 years of Survivor lore and all the best moments and all the players that you love to hear about and all of my fond memories of their experiences right here all in one book. You can check it out at robhasabook.com. Thanks for listening. This is RHAP. We know reality TV.